Let's enter the group chat. Ron Insana, MS Now business analyst and publisher of the Message of the Markets on Substack. Pablo Torre, he's already won best dressed of the day, so he's winning. Host of Pablo Torre Finds Out from Meadowlark Media. Eamon Mohideen, his voice is back. MS Now journalist and author and anchor, and Katie Drummond, global editorial director at Wired. Okay, Eamon, I want your take on this because this really isn't about the $1.8 billion slush fund, which, by the way, a lot of Republicans could actually get behind, given how absurd it is, because lots of them get jacked up and get on the side of Trump when it comes to Jan 6. But what this really is about is Donald Trump and his family basically having permanent immunity from the IRS ever looking under their hood. And now 2 Republican senators have made it wildly public that this don't fly.
It's nice to be back with my voice. Thank you. And I like being called an author, although I haven't actually written anything, like no books. But I will say, I think that there's also something more important about this that I think we should highlight. The 2 Republicans that are standing up to Donald Trump are leaving office. And they're doing so and finally growing a spine to stand up to Donald Trump. And whether or not they're doing this because it's Donald Trump, whether or not they're doing this because of the politics of, Donald Trump endorsing Ken Paxton over John Cornyn, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they've decided to take this stand and say enough is enough. The deafening silence from the other Republicans who seem to be okay with Donald Trump getting this free pass from the IRS, corrupting that, weaponizing the Department of Justice, and giving up $1.8 billion in this weaponization fund to people who attacked police officers on January 6th reeks of the kind of corruption that they claim to be against. And the reason why I say that is because when you have Republicans who are willing to come and say they care about the police, they want to punish Democrats for weaponizing the Department of Justice, but turning a blind eye to Donald Trump and his family and all of the January 6th insurrectionists for their own political convenience, I think that it's such a low point for the Republican Party that I'm not going to give Thom Tillis and John Cornyn a lot of praise. I'm happy that they're taking this position and preventing Todd Blanche from being confirmed for now. But I'm also not putting a lot of weight into what is happening behind the scenes with this agreement that they won't verbally give to I should say they won't give in writing to, but are willing to give verbally. And it speaks to the fact that they don't believe Donald Trump and they don't believe Todd Blanche. They know they will stand in Congress under oath, lie to the American public, and then turn around and actually pass this weaponization fund through and get this money and Donald Trump the IRS break.
Well, I'm glad Eamon Mohideen got his voice back. But doesn't this put now Republican lawmakers in the hot seat? Because whether it's Ali Vitale or a number of our other colleagues that are going to be walking through the halls of Congress, they're now going to be asking Tommy Tuberville and every other Republican senator. So what John Cornyn and Thom Tillis are doing, what they're not okay with, because the basis of MAGA was there are 2 separate systems, and the elites and the wealthy in this country don't have to follow the same rules that you do. Well, now this is an actual policy. This is an actual plan that Trump and Blanche want to put in place to absolve Trump and his family from ever having any tax scrutiny, which he's been plagued by his whole career.
Well, I guess, the optimistic view would be that pressure on the GOP, on Republicans, actually forces some of them to take a stand, right? I would not say that we have necessarily seen that happening with any frequency over the last sort of nearly 2 years. It will be interesting to see whether any of them decide to do anything about this, or to your point, whether these backroom conversations ultimately end with Blanche being confirmed, in a matter of days.
And remember, even if he doesn't get confirmed, he can stay acting
indefinitely, right? So he's there.
I just want to put this in the larger context in which Donald Trump has said, according to the Wall Street Journal, I believe, within this hundreds of feet radius of the White House, of the Oval Office, I will pardon all the people who are concerned that I am asking to do anything that might be untoward. So I think about that because when it comes to Todd Blanche and why he is operating the way he has and what people have to fear in Capitol Hill and what they are actually concerned about, the answer goes back to the guy who is telling them, go along with what I want. I got you on the back end. The question, of course, is whether this deal is not only good for the congressmen who are now being asked to vote on it, but for anyone else, whether this is anyone else's benefit, Ron.
Yeah, well, it's not really. I mean, it's definitely the Trump family and the J6,
If you helped plan the insurrection and execute it, I mean, it's great for you.
Take care of everybody who goes along with the stuff that he wants you to do.
But Ron, doesn't this go right back to Eamon's original point? Like, Trump articulated, I got you on the back end. That's potentially where John Cornyn found his voice, because he didn't get John Cornyn on the back end. He endorsed Ken Paxton.
Yeah, and look, I mean, to me, this is shades of John Mitchell, going back to the Watergate days, who was President Nixon's attorney general and effectively acted as his personal attorney, ran the committee to reelect the president.
Baby, that's a JV version of what we have going on right now.
I don't agree with that assessment. I mean, Watergate was a very, very big deal, constitutional crisis. Yes, we're doing this in spades now.
Would it be today?
I don't know. I've heard J.D. Vance say that this would be a 12-hour item in the news cycle. But, yeah, I think it would be, given what the president did at the time. But now you have a very similar situation to a greater extent, where his attorney general, should he become officially ensconced in that position, is the president's defense. And he's now literally
his own personal attorney,
approving, that 1.8, what I'll call a $1.8 billion slush fund, and that permanent immunity on the IRS side. This is unfathomable, unthinkable at any other time in political history, and it's happening right in front of our eyes.
It's a bad deal for these politicians. That's what I want to say. Like,
explain.
Yeah.
They think they're going to get protection, but I will make this analogy. When the mafia offers you protection, it doesn't end well for the people who buy into it. It only means that you're compromised to the point of being able to be used in ways that you can never come back from. And that's the subtext of all of this. The president has this actually unlimited and truly impervious ability to just say, federal crimes, I will take care of that for you.
You want to go literary? It's a Faustian bargain.
It's a bit of a Faustian bargain. And I don't think that ended well for Dr. Faust.
But they've been making that bargain for years.
Yes.
I mean, eventually, to your point, I think you're right, it will catch up with them. I think one question I have is, to what extent are Republicans looking at the president right now and the very high probability, my optimistic view, that he is a lame duck following the midterms? And does that calculus play into this for any of them at all?
But what kind of lame duck is he, really?
Yeah.
I mean, given that Congress is doing absolutely nothing to interfere with anything that's going on, whether it's the war in Iran, whether it's this particular item, any other executive order that he signs, even the Democrats may not be able to stop him if they only take the House.
And I was just going to add really quickly, the idea of the lame duck probably in the context of him being the president, but he will not be lame duck within Republican politics. And as we've seen, they are more concerned about the impact he has on their individual races. Example, Tom Massey, the Ohio State legislator. Yep. I think they look at those examples and say he is still a kingmaker with the 30%, maybe 25% of the MAGA base that he still controls.
I actually think there's another level on top of that. Unlike any lawmaker before, look what Donald Trump is doing. He can make you richer than you have ever imagined.
So true.
He is very good at that.
So he may be a lame duck, but now for $100,000 a month, or maybe nothing if you're a true insider, he'll tell you what he's about to tweet or social media post before he does it, and it moves the markets. Yeah. And so we are seeing time and again Trump's family, Trump associates near his family, getting paid enormous amounts of money, getting in on nuclear deals, on business deals, on buying or selling stocks before the market moves, where they're making insane amounts of money. And you've got these members of Congress who have not necessarily made a ton of dough because they're members of Congress. And he can now create a path for you to have more money than you've ever imagined. And that is something we have not seen from him.
And the flip side is
Hold on. Eamon said so true, and I needed the audience to hear that.
I apologize.
I thought you learned how the show works.
Let the record show that
yes.
So true.
But go, Ron. What do you want to say?
On the flip side, you can pay $1 million to a super PAC and get your lettuce recall delayed. That there's a cycle.
There's a metaphor there.
But to Pablo's point, I mean, there's an expiration date, no pun intended, on all of those purported benefits. I mean, Taylor Farms is experiencing that, I would argue, right now. Yeah. And eventually these Republican politicians will, too.
And that's why the Cornyn thing is so interesting. It's like, do they actually just see the incentive structure changing because they're realizing we're not getting anything else from him?
Yeah.
We're done. And to your point, all of the economic corruption, the abuse, that only persists because it's not being regulated by someone like an attorney general. And so the question of, do you want this system to keep spinning? this is a moment in which people have the opportunity to say, we should all get out of the car right now.
By the
But
way,
they're not.
By the way, just to go back to John Cornyn and Tom Tillis, they're not exactly profiles in courage. And the reason why I say that is because when you kind of nail this story down to what it's about, they're asking Todd Blanchard in the Department of Justice to put in writing what?
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah, literally, they're begging him. They're like, please, just put it down in writing what you said to us in the hearing. Like, you already said it to the world. The world heard it, but we know it doesn't mean anything in the world.
It's not a Department of Justice official decree of some sort. It is just
literally, I think,
Send us a letter.
I don't know which one it was. I don't know which one of them it was that said,
strongly worded letter.
It said, like, I literally sent it back to them yesterday with like a red line saying, here, we will accept this. And the Department of Justice was like, we won't even accept that. So it's like you get to a point where you're saying to yourself, what in good God name's happening that you are trying to say to the Department of Justice, put down in writing what you said to us under oath in a hearing, and we're good to go. We'll confirm him. And they won't even do that.
The bar is very, very low. I think we can all acknowledge that. At the same time, I will take the added attention and scrutiny that this is drawing to the blatant corruption that we're all talking about. I mean, just to have it in the headlines, to remind everyone, $1.8 billion slush fund and immunity from IRS audits. That's what we're talking about.
This is an amazing point, because thousands of Americans took to the streets in No Kings rallies, people that were not activists, people that weren't even Democrats. And while Democrats have a tiny amount of money going into these midterms compared to Republicans who have giant treasure troves of dough, stories like this in the headlines across network after network, newspaper after newspaper, people are going to see it, people are going to know it, and they don't need a Democratic advertisement. And so the Trump administration is sort of doing this to themselves. And the American people, we say all the time, like Trump says, the American people don't mind. Yeah, they freaking do.